In Nigeria, the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has revealed that the aviation sector is looking to introduce compensation payment for passengers that got their flights delayed or cancelled and due to causes that are not natural. Now, Keyamo also asked airline operators to establish reliable communication channels so that these passengers can receive cancellation notices as well. These are the two main things that we'll be talking about on this topic. And joining us to do that, we have our guest, Mr. Toni Ukachukwu, the CEO, Aviators Africa in Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Ukachukwu, for joining us. Toni, are you there? All right, while we wait for Toni to join us, we also have Mr. Goddy, the aviation researcher and publisher in Abuja. Thank you so much, Mr. Ike, for joining us.
Oh, thank you, my dear. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, wonderful.
All right, Mr. Ike, while we wait for Mr. Ukachukwu to join us, we're talking about the aviation sector and the federal government's plans to make these airlines pay for cancelled flights or delayed flights that are not from natural causes. Now, in 2022, there were over 47,000 delayed flights. And it's been a recurring situation where, a lot of people get their flights delayed, and not just by 30 minutes or an hour. We're talking 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, and sometimes even till the next day. Why exactly does this happen?
All right, thank you very much. First of all, the activities of the airlines are unacceptable in the international aviation world. As a matter of fact, it seems that most of it happens only here in Nigeria. And the reason is quite simple. The reason is that the law that should create the deterrence required for the airlines to learn how to behave well is compromising. And when I heard that threat made by Honorable Minister Keyamo, knowing fully well that he's a lawyer, a senior advocate of Nigeria, I am sure that what I'm about to tell you now, and indeed tell the world, is something that he knows too well, but not in a position to expose it, but I'm going to expose it here today. The Civil Aviation Act 2022 has made it difficult for the minister to carry out his threat. As a matter of fact, it rendered him a toothless bulldog. Section 102 of that act, that's a Civil Aviation Act of 2022, Section 102, subsections 1 and 2. Listen to what they say. First of all, 1021 says the authority that is referring to NCAA, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. It says the authority shall make regulations for suitable compensation of passengers and other aviation and allied service consumers arising from different forms of grievances. That is what that section 1021 says. And then go to subsection 2. It goes on to say, the regulations under section 1 shall be formulated after holding consultations with the carriers and other stakeholders. Can you see the unacceptable state of the law? What is synonymous with asking the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice of the Federation to invite armed robbers to a meeting in order to decide the punishment that they get each time they rob anyone. Isn't that ridiculous? That is the kind of law we have in the Civil Aviation Act of 2022. So I can bet you a wonderful young lawyer in the person of our aviation minister, a senior advocate of Nigeria, I can tell you that he knows that this problem is there. He can back, but he can't bite, because until he holds a meeting with the airlines, he will not be able to impose any fine on them. He will not be able to compel them to do anything, because anything that he does without first meeting with them as stipulated by the law and agreeing on what they pay when they go wrong, any such thing will be illegal. And of course, the airlines will go to court, cite this section, cite the unacceptability of his threat and actions, and defeat him in court.
All right.
That's what will happen.
Okay, Mr. AK, I mean, I do understand and to some extent agree that the constitution does not allow for the implementation of this law that they're about to, pass out. But don't you think that they have put into consideration that aspect and maybe looking into amending the constitution to suit that? Because it's quite a ridiculous.
It's not constitution. It's not constitution really. Is the Act, the Civil Aviation Act 2022 that I'm quoting for you, not constitution.
Right.
Yeah. So if they plan to amend it, that would be good news, because I mean it's ridiculous. I've just given you an analogy or what it is synonymous, with in telling you a situation where the law provides that the Attorney General or the Minister of Justice would need to invite armed robbers to a meeting, discuss what they pay or what fines or what punishment they get when they rob any Nigerian or anybody residing or doing business in Nigeria. Just imagine it for 1 second, because that's exactly what this law is saying under Part 15. Section 102, subsections 1 and 2. Why would the Honorable Minister need to have a meeting with the airlines before he decides what kind of punitive measures that can be applied in order to deter them from doing what they are doing? I can tell you that the way passengers have been taken for granted in this country, Nigeria, is totally unacceptable. I can share some good news elsewhere in the world. I remember, traveling with one of the foreign airlines to Houston, Texas, some couple of years back, and there was this, meeting by oil magnates around the world that they hold, in Texas, annually. It just happened that the airlines got flooded, and as a matter of fact, threw some of us out of the way. Well, guess what? I didn't lift a finger. The airline officials called me and others that were affected that couldn't fly that particular day and apologized profusely, and then gave us ticket for the train ride to the airport hotel. Give us, ticket for our meals, for the dinner and the breakfast, and what's more,
right,
gave each and one of us 900 euros.
Okay.
I got mine. It was sweet money, for just a comfortable night in a hotel at the expense of the airline.
Right.
And so it's the right thing to do. But the fact that Attorney General, I'm just giving this as an analogy for you to understand how serious this error in the Act, in the Civil Aviation Act is the fact that Attorney General of the Federation would need to invite armed robbers, sit them down in his office, negotiate with them, agree what they pay or what kind of punishment they get when they rob somebody in Nigeria before such a punishment gets meted out, to them. That's exactly what this law is saying, that before the minister can punish these airlines, he will need to sit down on a round table with them, have a conversation, agree on what punitive measures will be taken before he can
Okay,
So at the moment,
Mr. AK, your point is well noted. I mean, it quite is
let's
laughable if that's the situation. But in the meantime, I think we have Mr. Ukachukwu joining us. Mr. Ukachukwu, can you please confirm that you can hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you've been following the conversation. What do you have to say about the Civil Aviation Act of 2022?
Okay, so I haven't read the Civil Aviation Act of 2022, but going to the crux of the matter where we are is talking about consumer protection and is on CAS, Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulation, Part 19. So the regulation and the compensation plans is there articulated of what passengers are entitled to in the case of delay, cancellation, rerouting, or whatever it is. So I hadn't joined when my co-guest was talking about the act, say that the minister can't punish except the airline operators are called and to decide what punitive measures can be taken in the case of delays. But if we are going straight to what is being in the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulations, Part 19, under consumer protection, then of course we can dive into the matter. That's my opening statement. Thank you very much.
Okay, now there seems to be a conflict. We're talking about Part 19 of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulation, and then we're also talking about a contradictory statement in the Civil Aviation Act of 2022 that...
Sorry, if I might add, where I'm quoting from is it was signed by the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority on May the 17th, 2023. So my co-guest is talking about 2022. I'm talking about the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulation that has been updated for 2023, where the compensations are under consumer protection.
All right.
So I just want to make it clear. So if we are quoting from 2023, I think I'm quoting from the one that has been updated under consumer protection.
Okay. Mr. AK, do you have anything to say to that?
Oh, yeah, sure. The update on the consumer aspect would not stop the power of Part 15, Section 102, subsections 1 and 2 of the Civil Aviation Act. I mean, I can bet you that consumer protection part would not have announced that those sections in the Civil Aviation Act, have been deleted from the books and they don't exist anymore. I can bet you that such a thing is not possible to be there. It can only be in the next updated version of the Civil Aviation Act. All it exposes is the fact that those that have been dealing with these bits and pieces of our laws are not coordinating all the necessary laws to eliminate conflicts and ensure that those that are supposed to be operating the laws, have laws behind them and have the powers to do what they say.
Okay, Mr. AK.
According to this act, yes, go ahead.
Right. I would want us to move away from the, Aviation Act. We would come back to that if time permits us, because I want us to look at the intention of the federal government in itself to make these compensation payments available. Now, Mr. Ike, you did mention that you traveled some time ago and you were paid conveniently, comfortably to get yourself a good hotel because of the fault of the airlines. Now, the way airlines operate in Nigeria, if they operated like that in any other country, they would definitely have been sued out of existence. So why is it that this provision is just coming now?
Well, to tell you the truth, I am one of the perhaps few Nigerians frustrated to my bones on the issue of lawlessness in our nation. The bane of this country is lawlessness, and especially lawlessness in high places. If we were to have a system that works strictly by the law, that has everybody, no matter who you are, under the law, you will find out that a whole lot of people will behave better. But what do we find here? We'll find a situation where, for instance, somebody breaches your right, takes away your money in a business transaction, and he says to you arrogantly and sometimes stupidly, oh, come on, you're not going to get this money back. Go to court if you like. I will keep you there for the next 10 years. And after that, you will get nothing. I will teach you that we are in charge of this country. That is the kind of language you hear from a whole lot of irresponsible folks out there. And that is exactly why no one is afraid of the law and no one is behaving well.
Okay.
And until we send that strong signal that we have laws, that our laws have teeth, can bite, are willing to bite, and we bite when they catch you doing the wrong thing. Until that happens, no one will get serious, not even the airlines.
Right. All right. Mr. Ukachukwu, there was a clause there that these compensation will be made only if, the delay or the cancellation was not something out of natural cause. What's the yardstick, though? How do they tell if it's true? For example, if the airline says they're canceling due to bad weather, how do they measure that it's actually due to bad weather and they're telling the truth?
Okay, the truth is, I just want for us to kind of deep into or stay focused on the issues we're trying to discuss, in the essence that federal government saying they want to now start enforcing compensation is a good job in the right direction. However, you talked about how do we know if the clauses can be met in the case that is natural occurrence or is the fault of the airlines. I want to also state here that in as much as the minister has good intention to say, look, airline operators, I'm on your side because he has had meetings with them and you have cited the challenges you are facing in operation. However, I also have to be on the part of the passengers, okay? For me, that is a welcome development. But in going further, we now have to check what are the causes of these delays, cancellation, etc. Okay, then we can begin to find solutions to them, because some are the part of the airline operators, some are the part of the government, and sometimes maybe on the part of passengers. We have to separate them. Now, the minister has said in a natural occurrence, these are clauses, of course, the airlines didn't cause them, no compensation should be made. However, what causes delay on the part of airline operators is also not their fault sometimes. For example, let's say there is a VIP movement and the airspace is closed, no plane can take off. It's not the airline's fault, okay? It's the government's fault, because now that's another topic for conversation. We should move beyond closing the airspace because of VIP movement, but that's another conversation entirely.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say here is it's a welcome development. However, what are the causes? How do we separate the faults of government and the fault of the airlines so that the passengers can be duly compensated
right.
in where it's made applicable?
Exactly. All right, we're going to come back to the causes, but right now, Mr. Ike, Keyamo also urged that the airline operators build stable communication channels that will enable passengers to get cancellation notices. And talking about communication, sometimes you wonder if the people sending out these emails are sleep chatting, because the way they send out an email, for example, your flight was scheduled for 6 a.m. and then they send an email that your flight has been rescheduled for 8 a.m. and you get there at 7:30 and you find that your flight has taken off, or it's just taking off and you're almost missing it. So why exactly is that miscommunication even happening? If you schedule something for 6 a.m. and you reschedule, I expect to get there and, board my flight before it's 8 a.m. because you've told me that it's 8 a.m. And then I get there and I see that you're sticking with the 6 a.m. that you initially said was canceled. So that miscommunication is another issue. What do you say about that?
My dear, human nature, if you don't have strong, credible deterrence, the likelihood is that an average human being will take it for granted what he knows that the law prohibits him or her from doing. It's just the simple thing that's going on. The airlines know that nothing will happen and they won't be punished and they won't lose money. And so they do whatever they like, knowing fully well that they will get away with it. Any day we put our feet down as a people and as a nation and say that these things can happen, and if it means not having any airline in the skies in Nigeria, let it be. If you go wrong, you get thoroughly punished. And then they try you out and get punished. You will see that the nonsense will end. It's all about sending a strong signal that we are serious. And then you find people begin to behave well. I'll give you another quick example that will paint a better picture of what I'm trying to tell you. You travel abroad and you're on your way back to Nigeria, you see Nigerians behaving so well in the foreign airports, keeping to the queue and doing everything that the officials say they should do and boarding nicely. As soon as we touch down here, either in Abuja or in Lagos or wherever, for as long as it's within the Nigerian space, what do you find? You find people, jumping queues, people moving all the way, and some don't even want to have their, luggages, checked and stamps, necessary inflow, stamps put on their. I've seen one.
Right.
I mean, this couple came, just went through, and an official, just waved at them, and their passports were not stamped. I was shocked, but I have no power to say or do anything. I just whispered to the official when it was my turn.
Okay.
Why did you let this couple through? So this is exactly what's going on in Nigeria. The law is for some group of people, and some are above the law. Yeah. And those that are above the law are messing around with it. And that's the simple truth. Until we get serious as people, as a nation, no one will get serious in this country. We'll continue to joke.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Ike. Finally, Mr. Ukachukwu, now, while giving reasons why flight cancellation, and this is to address the causes that you mentioned earlier, while he was giving the reason for the cancellation, the Director General of the NCAA, that's Captain Musa Nuhu, made a mention of the problem being that a lot of airlines don't even have the capacity to meet their current financial obligations. They're lagging behind on some financial payments, on some things that they need to sort out financially. So what exactly is being done to finance the aviation sector in Nigeria?
Okay, so for each statement you make is a whole gamut that you need to open up a whole entire conversation altogether. When it comes to financing, the aviation sector is a whole lot of issues that has come to be with that. But just staying on, this compensation, I would like to say that the law is clear on what passengers should get. I'll just give one example. For example, if there is a delay in 30 minutes, for 30 minutes, the airline is required to announce and tell passengers that there is a delay. Beyond 2 hours, there should be some kind of refreshment, emails and text messages. Beyond 6 hours, then there should be some kind of compensation. It goes like that.
Right.
That if the airport is closed between 10 p.m. to 4 p.m., then it should be accommodated in hotels. And for local flights or international flights, about 25% to 30%, refund in tickets. These are in the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulation Act Part 19 for consumer protection. But if you want to talk about what causes these delays, okay, it hinges on some of the infrastructural decays that we have in the sector that is not allowing the operators to operate efficiently. So that's one leg of it, all right? Then on the side of the airline operators, talking about finance, they don't have the capacity. They also have issues with their operation. So it's all clearly intertwined. So there is a fragmentation in the ecosystem where government and the airline operators need to sit down. But I will close with this. There needs to be infrastructural upgrade to enable airlines to efficiently do their operations. If that happens, it will be just like my co-guest is citing. We'll now get up to the level where he's citing examples abroad. So these are the issues. Airlines are complaining that their operating environment is not very conducive because of the infrastructure. For example, If an airline has a flight and at the airport, the carousel breaks down, they can't load the baggages into the aircraft, it's of no fault to the airline. Okay, the airline has to wait, has to delay until that baggage belt is fixed. That hasn't got to do anything with the airline. It has to do with the airport. But the airline will take the brunt of the delay because nobody will call the airport. But these are issues, okay? So until these infrastructures help the airline to operate efficiently, and then of course, compensation being given as when due according to the law, then we'll still be here talking about the issues. Thank you very much.
All right. I think at this point, I'm going to say thank you so much to Mr. Toni Ukachukwu, the CEO of Aviators Africa in Lagos, and also a big thank you to Mr. Goddy Ike, aviation researcher and, of course, publisher in Abuja. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.